Hello and welcome to Powerhouse Podcast, brought to you by SAC Live TV. Today we are going to have an amazing guest, Raelene Bennett, on the show. We're going to be talking to her about her life and the 59 years of abuse that she's gone through: sexual, physical, emotional abuse, where it led her to, and what brought her out of it. So I encourage you to stay tuned and be a part of this podcast.
Welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast, presented to you by SAC Live TV. Here's your host, Pastor Robert Jones.
Hello, and welcome to Powerhouse Podcast, brought to you by SAC Live TV. I am your host, Pastor Robert Jones, and with me hosting today is Miss Joanne Johnson.
Hey everyone, it's good to be here.
Today we have with us Ms. Raelene Bennett. She is an author, and she's also went through some real life-changing processes, if you want to call it that. And so today, I want to say thank you, Raelene, for being on the show today.
You're welcome.
So, Raelene, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give me some history. Tell me about yourself.
I'm 62 years old. I'll start with that, but I don't look it at all. Anyway, I grew up in Sacramento, California, actually raised in Orangeville, and I had both parents in the home during that time. My life started out from birth. I was born deformed internally, which nobody knew that till I was 9 years old. So I was very ill for the first 9 years of my life. So that's how my start of my life began. I went to public schools in the beginning and then was moved into the private school system, which I did that until my sophomore year. And then I went back to public schools. I had a family that, I'll just put it this way, very dysfunctional. My father was a workaholic, and my mother had her own issues. I was abused a lot growing up, not only in the home, but on the outside as well. I have several accounts, which I'll go over, of the different forms of abuse I went through.
Okay, so you've lived in Sacramento your whole life, basically?
Yes.
Okay, and you went to public school, you said?
Yes.
Did you attend any university or anything like that? Or have you had any further education?
My goal when I was in high school was to go to college and become a brain surgeon. I started out taking the courses at Sierra College, and along with that, psychology courses were involved in becoming a doctor. Unfortunately, I let addictions get in the way of that. And so in turning to doing drugs and alcohol, I was no longer able to continue what I set out to do.
All right, so you said addictions kind of prevent you from that. At what age did you start meddling with things that would lead to addictions?
At 9 years old, I can remember I bought 10 marijuana joints, and I took them out by the shed and stood there and smoked all 10 at the same time. That is the beginning.
So at age 9. Mm-hmm. So something's going on in a 9-year-old that causes that. And I can say that I can relate to that a lot, because I was the same age when I got high for the first time on marijuana.
Right.
And I had a really jacked up home life. And so that was the way I escaped it. Now, did you grow up in church, or did you have any faith foundation at all?
Actually, I was taken to church. I started going to church, I believe it was about 5 years old. I can still remember today, my Sunday school teacher from back then had a huge impact on my life.
And how did they have an impact? You said they had a huge impact. How did they impact your life?
Well, being able to go to church, I was around people that were happy, that seemed peaceful, they're very loving. So it was a whole different life for me away from the home.
Okay. So but your family engaged in church together? Or did you go by yourself?
My mom went sometimes. My father was usually working.
Okay.
As he was working 7 days a week, probably 80 hours a week, workaholic.
Okay.
At one point, my mom stopped going, and then I was dropped off.
Okay. So you were the one going. They partook of it for a while, but then stopped.
Right.
And then you noticed that there was some, would you say a lack of joy? Would you say anger? What would you say was the thread that ran through your family dynamic during your youth?
I would call it depression.
Depression.
Yes. My mother was a very depressed individual.
Okay.
I can give some examples of what was going on. I was dropped at the church for choir practice. And unfortunately, at that time, we all ran to the back and smoked cigarettes on our breaks. My mom had picked me up, and I got in the car. She's asked me if I'd been smoking. Of course, I denied it. Today, I know they really smell if you've been smoking. So in the fact that I denied it, she asked me again. We're sitting at the stop sign right outside the church, and I didn't see it coming. She took her hand, backhanded me right in the mouth, and blood was hitting the windshield. So there was, I would call that, there's physical abuse going on that we never talked about.
All right. So how were you when that happened?
I was probably 13.
13. All right. So that's roughly what, 49 years ago?
Something like that.
So 49 years ago from now is roughly 1975. So for those of you that weren't alive in 1975, that might have been some practice. I would call it common practice, but that could be a practice back in 1975. I think parents are not as volatile now as they are then. So you're going to church, you're feeling peace when you're there. You're going home and it's kind of miserable, if I can call it that.
Yeah.
So was there anything that happened in your youth? And when I'm talking about youth, I'm talking from earliest memories through high school, that you could identify as something that was a turning point for your life.
A turning point into the wrong direction?
Absolutely. Something that impacted you in a way that put you on a course of addiction.
I would have to say that it was the abuse on several different occasions. The first memory, which is very little of a memory, I was 3 years old when the abuse started. At the age of 5, it happened again by a neighbor, and it was sexual abuse.
Okay.
After that, I kept running into situations where I was ending up abused, and I began questioning, what am I doing wrong? And I began to feel the shame behind it. I was blaming myself, not realizing that these are sick individuals that are doing this.
Okay. So a lot of people may say, hey, 3 years old, how do you remember that? I don't remember things when I was 3. I can attest, and I think that those of you out there can say, wait a minute, I do remember. I never will forget, we moved to another city when I was 3, and as we're on the road, I had my 3rd birthday, and we stopped at this Texaco station, and they bought me this Texaco gas tanker, and in the back seat, I remember my knees were on the floorboard. I'm little, I'm 3, and I'm playing with this truck as a 3-year-old. I never will forget that memory. Mm-hmm. And so I think that those things that are impactful that you do remember, some positive, some negative. But this at 3 years old, it took you still remember that. That's 59 years ago.
Correct.
Can you tell me other memories you had at 3 years old?
Actually, I do not remember any other memories from then.
That's pretty common.
Yeah.
So that was something that got deep-seated at 3, and then you found that you were in these areas where you were repeatedly abused.
Correct.
If you were to guess how many times you were physically abused, or you probably have a count. I don't mean to discredit you by saying guess, because those are major things that you don't just, forget, right?
Right.
So how many times were you sexually abused between 3 and till the last time you believe but you were abused?
I don't know if I can count that high. When I was taken and transferred back into the public school system. At that time, I was very athletic, and so I was on all the sports teams.
Okay.
And sadly, there was a coach. He was also a school counselor, and he took a great interest in me. And I had no idea what his MO was behind that. But he started writing notes to the office, releasing me from class, and he would take me to his home where he was sexually abusing me. He would lock his son up in the bedroom from the outside, just a little boy, and he would give me alcohol. And it started with, he asked me if I would like a Swedish massage, not knowing at all what that meant, and I found out. So there were 9 counts on that alone that the FBI investigators, whatever, had that was going to go to a court hearing.
So what were your age the last time you were abused, sexually abused?
Sexually abused, I would say 17 years ago.
17 years ago. Mm-hmm. Wow.
The most recent abuse is that of a mental, emotional, a verbal, physical, but there's no sexual abuse.
Okay.
And that ended September 30th, 2024.
So you and I have known each other for 16 years. Mm-hmm. I met you in a hospital, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But by you walking through abuse, starting with sexual abuse at age 3, lasting all the way until, let's call it 45 or so, do you, from your own experiences, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, but just over the time I've known you, and the time we've had to talk and discuss and talk about things, it seems to me, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, that this sexual abuse led to physical abuse, which led to emotional abuse, and it's kind of led to a life of abuse. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
It is accurate. Okay. So is it safe to say then, when an abuse door is open, whether it be sexually, physically, or emotionally, it can lead to other forms of abuse?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. All right. And I think, honestly, that's one of the things that, ladies and gentlemen, I think is so key, that we recognize abuse when it happens and we take the necessary steps. Now, as a 3-year-old, how are you gonna take steps against that?
I'm actually taking steps right this moment.
You're still taking steps.
Yes, even for that 3-year-old. I have broke the silence. I had a life of not talking, not sharing what was really going on in my life. I don't have that fear anymore. And by me doing this podcast, writing books, etc., by me sharing my story, my life events, is actually healing for the different times I was abused. In other words, I'm not keeping it a secret no more. I'm taking a stand, and I'm not only taking a stand for myself, I'm taking a stand for all of you out there who have been abused, are being abused. I know through the abuse, I turned to a lot of different ways to change how I was feeling, whether it was through drugs, whether it was through alcohol, whether it was through cutting. I've done a lot to take myself down.
Raelene, as a child, did you try to speak up at all?
I did when I was 16 years old with that coach. Actually, it's more times. There's another time I spoke up. With that, we had the 9 felonies against him. I had finally went to my mother and said, this is what's happening. She, in turn, from what my understanding, went straight over to the man's house and had a word with him. I was documenting things, as a lot of kids still do today, in my little Hallmark book, the dates and stuff. He was taking me to the home. And because of that, they could prove the 9 counts that were against him. But the part that is difficult is when we were getting ready to proceed with this, my mother told me I wasn't allowed to proceed.
All right. Well, Raelene, I am so glad you're here, and we got to talk a little bit about kind of the history behind it. But what we're going to do in this next segment is we're going to go into what that led you into, what it caused, what were the consequences of it, and it gets emotional for me, because I know you.
Right.
So, with that being said, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to be talking again with Raelene and go into depth of what it caused, what happened, where it led her, and lastly, we're going to talk about the redemption. So please stay tuned, and we'll be right back. We would like to thank Mosley Collins for sponsoring Powerhouse Podcast. And if you are in need of any legal help, please dial 916-444-4444. All fours for legal help. Thank you, Mosley, for your support.
Sac Life TV is proud to sponsor the Powerhouse Podcast with Pastor Robert Jones. If you'd like to be a sponsor, please contact us at info@saclife.tv.
Are you looking for substance in your podcasts? Look no further. Introducing the Powerhouse Podcast. Join us every week as we delve into politics, religion, entertainment, and education. Don't miss out. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and be part of the Powerhouse Podcast community. For more information, visit our website, powerhousepodcast.net.
Hello and welcome back. Today, our guest here on Powerhouse Podcast is Raelene Bennett, and we've been talking about the impact, if you will, of what happened early in your life, the abuse, sexual, physical, mental, emotional, and now we're going to go into an area that I know well by knowing you 16 years, but it's also real. Now, when we talk about this, ladies and gentlemen, I really need you to listen carefully, because I know that there are some of you out there that you've either experienced it, you are experiencing it, or you've come through it. And in any place that you are currently, I do believe that this is relative to you. And maybe you haven't been through it, but you know someone. And so it's a real thing. And I think that I know that our guest, Raelene, is I call you the key, because I see how you've come through it, and it's amazing. So, Raelene, let's talk about, I call it the suffering. The thing, all of those abuses led you to places. Can you just talk about some of the things you experienced from that you credited to the abuse?
Yes, I would say the number one issue, what was going on with me as I aged, was I had a life of shame. I felt very ashamed of what had happened to me. I had a lot of feelings going on, and looking back at the different forms of abuse, and I did not know how to deal with those feelings. So I would say the first thing I did to further try to deal with what was going on and the feelings I had about it was medication. The doctors began prescribing multiple kinds of medication. About 10 years ago, I believe it was, I was on 43 different medications. And there was multiple reasons why they felt this medicine, that medicine would work. One medicine has a side effect, so you got to take another medication to get rid of the side effect. Also, they make a lot of money giving people medication. When they found that I wasn't getting any better with the medication, my mental state of my depression, because I never dealt with any of this, led to actually I had to have 42 electric shock treatments. If anybody does not know what that is, there would be a way for you to look it up maybe online. They put electrodes, attach it to your temples, they put you under, and they send electricity to your brain. What that basically does is it kills the brain cells. So for me to be able to sit here today and have a conversation, a lot of people with a lot less shock treatments are not able to do so.
Can I just pause right there? Don't forget where we are. But I want to go back to shame for just a second if I can.
Yes.
You said that you felt shame. So are you feeling shame to talk about it? Shame that you went through it? Can you kind of expound on, like, what does that mean? What does that mean if you say, I felt shame? I felt in what way?
I would have to say I felt very unworthy
Of
love, of acceptance, of friendships. I isolated a lot. And I can say my life has been shame-based up until the recent years, and not even recognizing that was what was going on. I blamed myself for everything that I had gone through. It was all about me. It's what, if I'd been born differently or to a different family, I mean, I had every possible thing I could come up with.
So that abuse manifested in a way that made you feel shameful that you couldn't receive love, acceptance, friendships, relationships, and just kind of isolated you over here, and kept you imprisoned in your own self that you couldn't really express or talk about.
Exactly. It's putting it very well.
Okay. So now, when did you recognize that shame was so prevalent? When did you first notice it?
I noticed it during my first marriage.
Okay, and that was, how old were you then?
I was 17.
Okay, so you felt shame, and how did that manifest in your marriage?
Number one, the marriage did not last very long, I think because of, I was a very negative person, and I was broken. And I entered a marriage as broken. I married the man at 17 as a way, because it got me away, got me out of the house.
Okay.
The unfortunate thing, in the marriage, I was drinking a lot, alcohol, and I was doing a lot of drugs. Therefore, when I went in for treatment, my husband made the decision to divorce me because he knew about the alcohol, but he didn't know about the drugs.
Okay. So the drugs were the thing that was kind of the deal breaker for him.
Yes.
Okay. And then that led to a divorce, which is now rejection. So that's kind of saying, well, feeling shamed is good. You're absolutely right. You're not worthy. You don't deserve it. And this man just proved it by divorcing you.
Yes, exactly.
So now again, please correct me. I'm just kind of like reading into this. And so is it safe to say that led you, did that just heap on the shame? Did it heap on the rejection? How did that impact you?
It kept building up. I would say that had a huge impact on me. Actually, after I got out of treatment, I attempted suicide.
Okay, so you went into treatment for drugs and alcohol?
Yes.
Okay, so you went to a treatment center. Was it like a government facility or something?
It was actually, back in those days, it was called Starting Point.
Okay. And then after you got out of that, was your first attempt? Was your first attempt?
I would say that was my first attempt.
Okay.
There's a difference between cutting and suicide attempt. Some people don't see the difference in that.
Okay.
I began cutting around age 9. And
Now, when you say cutting, explain. Maybe somebody doesn't understand cutting. Can you go ahead and just share what is cutting? Why did you do it? Just kind of give us some history for as it pertained to you.
okay, cutting for me was a lot of people believe that cutting is so that the person can feel. Some people say that it made them feel. For me, it was different because when I cut, what cutting is taking a sharp object. I use straight edge razor blades and cutting your arms, legs, wherever. My whole body's covered in scars because I ran out of skin for places to cut. But for cutting for me, it wasn't about, I could not feel the razor blades cutting my skin. And many times I was stapled and sutured up. They were that deep. So I've looked at that. What it was doing for me, I had a sense of control because I can control how deep I put those razor blades into my skin.
Oh, okay.
So, and I knew when to stop. And then there's a point when if you don't stop, it can kill you. And I know it's a worldwide epidemic right now with kids. And if nothing else, if anybody's listening, parents or a teenager, whoever, if you've experienced this or know someone that has, please reach out for help because there's an underlying problem going on.
Okay. All right. If you were to guess how many times you've cut, how many times do you think you've cut over the course of your life?
I would say I have over 100 scars.
It's over 100 times?
Yes. I actually, I took a razor blade at one point, and it's probably 7 or 8 inches long, cut straight down my belly. Another time I cut my right leg. I hit an artery, and I didn't mean to. I would have died if they had not got there in time. It looked like a murder scene. I'm not proud of this at all. And I was considering getting them tattooed over. And someone told me, they says, don't. You need to be able to see those so you know where you came from.
Yeah, man. So how many times do you think you've committed suicide?
I have attempted suicide, I would say 9 or 10 times, maybe even more.
Okay.
As you got to remember, I was under the influence for a lot of years, so I don't exactly remember.
Okay.
I know that I have died several times. I can share one experience that keeps coming to mind. I was living in Oregon. I was married to my second husband and feeling suicidal. And often medications can cause, one of the symptoms can cause you to feel suicidal.
Yes.
And so what I did was, I had been drinking too. I remember standing on the steps at our apartment, and I took 200 trazodone, 100 milligrams, chugged them all with a bottle of beer. During that, I flatlined, and I went through a tunnel experience, which I don't talk often about. But in that tunnel experience, I was going really fast through the tunnel, and I could see the light at the end. And I heard something. And what I heard is, are you sure this is what you want? And to me, honestly, I believe that was God talking. Because I said, no, I don't. And I did not know this till a later time. They had to use the paddles on me to bring me back because my heart had stopped. Mm-hmm. So that's just one of the times.
Okay. So you've had over 100 cuts, over 9 suicide attempts. You've been on 43 medications at one time. If you were to guess, how many years have you been on some sort of medication? How many years of all that abuse?
I would say you're going to have to do the math for me. From 9 mind-altering medications, I'll put it that way.
Okay.
From 9, probably, I would say all the way up to 62.
Okay. All right. So you're looking at 53 years of medication.
Yes.
So So you've been medicated 53 years. You've had 9 suicide attempts. You've had over 100 cuts. You felt shame. That doesn't seem like a life that I'd want to live.
No, it has not been a happy life at all. But I can tell you that the ending of all this is very hopeful.
And that's why you're here.
Yes.
That's why you're here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you are listening to this because this is one, I would call it extreme, but I'm sure there are other ones out there that are extreme as well. What abuse gone unrecognized, unattended to, where it can lead. And unfortunately, from what I know and read, abuse is one of the most destructive things that we have going on right now. Most of the people that do take drugs, there's some kind of abuse that led to that drug use. My wife, she'll say it all the time. We'll see someone homeless on the corner, and you can tell they're strung out or been strung out, and her response to me is, I wonder what they went through as a child to get to where they are. And I didn't go through any kind of abuse like that. I just went through some abandonment things in my own life, but it led to smoking weed at 9 and a life of drug use until my late 20s. So we're going to go more into we're kind of wrapping this part up about what you went through, all of the suicide attempts, the cutting, the medications. But now we're going to go into the redemption. And we're going to talk about where your life is now, what's been happening, what brought you here, kind of the whole, kind of put the cherry on the top here, which is a good thing.
Yes.
A good thing. So we ask that you stay with us. We're going to come right back. We're going to be talking with Raelene Bennett. And we're going to talk about, what is the causation that caused this 180? What was the trigger inside of her that gave her that hope? What was it that was in her that made that switch? And where is she headed? And does she seem that she feels a purpose now and that shame has been put to bed? So please stay tuned. Raelene, we thank you so much for this time, and we welcome you back in just a few seconds. Thank you so much. We would like to thank Mosley Collins for sponsoring Powerhouse Podcast. And if you are in need of any legal help, please dial 916-444-4444. All fours for legal help. Thank you, Mosley, for your support.
Sac Live TV is proud to sponsor the Powerhouse Podcast with Pastor Robert Jones. If you'd like to be a sponsor, please contact us at info@saclife.tv.
Are you looking for substance in your podcasts? Look no further. Introducing the Powerhouse Podcast. Join us every week as we delve into politics, religion, entertainment, and education. Don't miss out. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and be part of the Powerhouse Podcast community. For more information, visit our website, powerhousepodcast.net.
Hello and welcome back to Powerhouse Podcast. Today with me is Raelene Bennett, and we've been talking about the physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional and mental abuse that she suffered over her 62 years of life and what it led to. It led to a life of shame, cutting, medications, suicide attempts. That's really how I met you. I was going to a hospital to visit someone in the hospital. It was a family member, and I was in the emergency room, and all of a sudden, you ever been standing somewhere or been somewhere and you feel like a presence behind you? Well, I felt this presence behind me, and I turned around, and it was Raelene. And she was holding a rag over her wrist, and she was bleeding, and blood was dripping on the floor. And my first response was, she needs some help. So as we're standing in line at the ER, I go up to the front and said, there's someone bleeding, I need a towel. So under the window, they slid me a towel, and I went back and I gave it to Raelene, and I said, here, use this. And she looked up at me. I'll never forget your look. Man, You had the most hurtful eyes. There was so much hurt in your eyes. And I handed you the towel and I said, here, take this. And you took it with like a surprised look on your face. And I turned back around. I didn't think much about it. And I waited till our turn and I gave him our name to wait to go back and see my relative. And I went and sat down. You were behind me. You went up, gave him your name. And you came and you sat down behind where I was sitting. And as you went by, the Lord spoke to me and said, tell her I love her just the way she is. And I just stood up and I turned around and I got on one knee and I said, I don't know you and you don't know me, but God knows us both. And he wants you to know he loves you just the way you are. Do you remember what you did when I said that? Do you recall?
Yes, I'll never forget that moment. I pulled up my sleeves and I says, like this. And you said, exactly as you are right now. And that has stuck with me for the last 17 years, 16, 17 years.
That was an impactful moment for me. I'll be honest with you. That was something I have never forgotten, and I don't think I ever will. And I remember when you pull your sleeves up, and they were just solid scars of cutting. And that's the thing, that God knew you just the way you are. He loves you just the way you are. In your pain, in your suffering, in everything that we go through, God loves us just the way we are. If you're out there and you're feeling unloved, discounted, abandoned, shamed, God loves you just the way you are. It may not seem that way. It may not feel that way, but that is fact, it's truth. So, tell us what turned the ship around, because in all reality, the way your life was going, for it to do a 180, you're turning the ship around, and you don't do that in a small place. It takes time. So, what do you attribute it to? We're give the people give them something, some hope, and help lead them in a direction. What would you say, defining moments, mindsets, whatever it may be?
I would have to say, through all of this, I knew in the back of my mind that there was a God. And it was, I would say, in this last year, it began, I was actually in an abusive environment. And I can remember sending you texts on your phone telling you where I'm at and all that in case somebody was to find my body. And I left that the September of last year, into September. And then in doing that, I started really taking a look on the inside and asking myself, where am I headed from here? I've had a lot of things come up in this last year. I call them storms today. And I think the biggest thing that happened is my father, me finding him almost dead up on his property, who is now currently on hospice. And I had made the decision when my mom passed away 10 years ago, I believe. Everybody feared I would commit suicide when she died, family, friends. And my dad came to me, and I made an agreement with him that I would live. I would no longer try to commit suicide. I would stay alive for him. Well, when he took a turn and has been put on hospice, I had to reevaluate what I was living for. And I realized I cannot live for you. I cannot live for anyone. The only one I can live for is God. And in that search of, in making the decision that I was going to live for God, because my dad's soon to pass, my life began to change. And I was, you had given me, you let me come into the office and volunteer and stuff, but you were giving me scriptures that I would study inside and out. And one of them has to do with transformation.
Romans 12:2.
Yes. And the renewing of your mind. And I can sit here today and say that scripture has come to life in me. My mindset today is all the things that I've gone through in my life. I used to say, if it helps one person, then it's worth it, because I have that kind of heart. Today, I recognize what I have gone through. Actually, God was molding me into the woman He created at birth. He knew where I was headed. He knew the journey I would be on. And I no longer have anger about the abuse. I don't hang on to it. I don't carry it everywhere I go. It happened, and my hope is to help others from what I've gone through. But I had to get to a place of, I started asking myself, what is my purpose in life? I'd have people tell me, you're one of them. Other people would say it. When are you going to answer the calling on your life? God's calling. And I'm finally at that place where I recognize what my calling in life is. And that is to be available to others and to help wherever I can. And if I have sharing my life helps you get through, I will do it a million times over. I am currently I'm writing a book. It'll take some time before it's published, but God gave me the title to the book, which has a message in itself. It's going to be called The Journey in Search for My True Authenticity. Big word. I have a hard time saying it with. But anyway, I believe people are going to want to see what's inside of that. What am I talking about? I can give credit to all the times I have died and the times I was told I was going to die to God, in that I did not die. Doctors even say I am a walking miracle, and today I believe that. But the biggest thing is our world and our society, with everything that's going on, it's people just keep moving forward, but they're not dealing with the emotions they have. They're not dealing with the feelings. And to be ourselves, for me, I must deal with what happened. I need to heal. And the healing doesn't come from my saying I'm going to heal. My healing's coming from I'm giving it to God, and He's showing me what my true purpose is. And that gives me hope, brings joy to my heart. I don't dread waking up in the mornings. So I've been asked to do 2 books. And so soon they will come out and we'll let you know. Where I'm headed, I've been on permanent disability for years. I have stenosis of the spinal cord, and there's no hope in what they've told me. But I turned it over to God, and I'm witnessing I am not that disabled woman. I'm learning to do things for myself. But I've also been headed in the direction of I'm going to be getting a full-time job with the county. I'm striving towards becoming a peer support specialist. And then in the evenings, I have it all on board already. I'm taking college courses to get my degree in psychology. I'm going to specialize in Christian psychology, because when I was seeking, there's not many out there that have that degree or whatever. So I thought that's part of my purpose. And it takes away a lot of the pain I've gone through and looking at it as I've been being molded by God. It gives me a positive outlook instead of that negative. And one of the real important things I was talking with you earlier about is I lived my life seeking approval from others. It wasn't just a little bit, my whole life evolved around it. If I call someone or text someone and they don't answer immediately, I run with it. It's they don't like me, they don't love me, on and on and on. I don't do that no more. And I don't need people's approval. I've got God's approval. And the number one thing is I will only speak truth. It's kind of my motto for, not kind of, that is my motto for life right now. As long as I'm speaking truth, I don't have to memorize it. I never forget truth. When you tell lies, you can't remember the last lie you told to catch up with so anyway, I've begun to love life. I love waking up in the morning, and I'm really looking forward to my life ahead. Because ultimately, I have the best gift, we have the best gift that any human being can have. For me, and my belief, is spending eternity with my Creator God.
Wow. Wow. I mean, a lot of people would say, you said, God saw this was all going to happen. He allowed you to go through it. And a lot of people want to escape suffering. They want to escape these things and never go through it. Other people don't escape it. And I've found in my life, though the extent was not like yours, that all of those times that we could label as suffering or hurt or pain, that now I'm able to help the very same people the same lane I was in. I can now speak to them. I can now encourage them. And it makes a huge difference. Anytime someone speaks to you out of, I've been there and I've done that, I can sit here and tell you, hey, I've been through it. I used to get Stoli's vodka out of the freezer every morning at 5 a.m. And I would sit on my balcony and my breakfast in the morning was not Cheerios or oatmeal. It was Stoli vodkas and about 4 cigarettes. And I would get out on my balcony and I'd just start drinking Stoli's vodka right out on the patio until I smoked about 4 cigarettes and get ready for work and go to work. So I know what it's like to be bound, to be oppressed by addiction and hurt, because that's where it all stemmed from. And to see your turnaround, I'll just be honest with you, man, if I was the Lord, I'd look down at you and say, job well done, my good and faithful servant, because you didn't give up. You tried, but he wouldn't let you. And God's going to use all of that to help others. And that's really what Christianity is all about. It's really what it's all about, which is totally opposite, right, of kind of what culture is. Culture is all about you, when it's really not. It's about others.
I like that she asked the question, what are you living for? And just realizing that there's purpose to her life, And it's just awesome that at 62, 63, she's starting a new career. She's writing the books. She's going to school. Like, there is purpose. And she is now pursuing that purpose.
It's powerful. I kind of giggle inside. Like, I'm going to college. I'm getting my degree. And you're 62. And a lot of people think, well, life has passed me by. It's over. It's done. And you're like, no, life has just begun. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that encourages you the way it encourages me. I mean, I'm encouraged. Makes me go, okay, I'm slacking. I'm 58. I need to do more, right? So I'm encouraged by that. So what do you look forward to? I mean, we talked about all these things, but now what are you looking forward to the most, as you go forward and you move through life? What excites you? What gets your blood flowing? What is it that you feel like, hey, this is what I'm living for now?
Having the opportunity to help other people. I mean, by helping them with by what I've gone through, because people can have a bachelor's degree in something, but a person who's walked the walk and been through the life actually have a real understanding of what it's like. I mean, I didn't bring up the other things that happen when we don't deal with our emotions and feelings. I mean, you can go into gambling, you can go into cigarettes, you can go into sugar eating, you can, I mean, there's different forms where we try to escape. And it appears that a lot of us are trying to escape something. So what makes me tick is I'm excited at the direction I'm heading because I'll be working with people. And I have a love for people to the point of even the last abuser, the love of my heart kept saying, well, they would be homeless if I wasn't there. Instead of looking at what was really going on, I just have that heart for others. So that brings me joy. I mean, and I love school. I loved it back 40 some years ago. It's a long time ago. And I love learning new things. I like to have an open mind.
So do you know how crazy that sounds when you say, I love people? When people are the genesis and the source of all your pain. I mean, does that sound crazy to anybody besides, I mean, I'm looking around the studio right now. I mean, does that sound crazy to you? I mean, that sounds crazy to me because if something was a source of my pain and everything that I went through, I think I would run from it. But you don't. Like, you love the very thing, the very source of what brought you pain, you now want to help. Man, that's, wow.
Well, I spent my life running from it. Now I'm running to it, right into it, if you follow what I mean by that. And the love that's in my heart, it can only, I didn't learn about love growing up. I didn't learn about it through 4 marriages. I didn't even go into that. I've learned the love of God, and how he loves me today. I still remember that back in the day at Kaiser when you said what you said to me, that he loves me just like this. I didn't believe it. I wanted it really bad, and I kept coming back seeking it. But today, his love, I have no doubt that he loves me. I feel like I'm his little girl, and he's my big papa. So that's where that love comes from. It can only come from him.
And that seems to fulfill you.
Yes, totally.
It's amazing, like when we tap into that true unconditional love, how it fulfills us. You know, I have a white German Shepherd. Her name is Bree. And every time I come home, she's got this excitement that Dad is home. It doesn't matter how bad my day has been. It doesn't matter what I've gone through. She greets me with just such love and anticipation and just this, like, I'm so glad you're home. You may be late. You may not have fed me yet. I love you anyhow. You know, you hadn't given me my treat, but I love you. And I feel like that's like the Lord. Like he loves us because of us, not because of our circumstance, not because of what we've done or said or none of that. He loves us because we're his creation. And when we understand that, it can change our lives forever. True love.
Yes.
Not conditional love. Well, I tell you what, Raelene, I'm going to buy the first book that when it's written, I'm buying it. You'll have to sign it for me. I'm super proud. And I say proud, I'm just like happy for you in how you've gone through these abuses, how you've gone through all of the suffering that you've encountered. And you didn't even list all of it. Unfortunately, we only have an hour here, but we could sit here and talk for 2 days about it. If someone would like to reach out to you, ask you questions, things of that nature, do you have an email or something like that they could reach you at?
Yes, certainly. I can be reached at rayleensheart@gmail.com. And Raelene is spelled RaeleneSheart. So Raelene's Heart at gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions, give you suggestions, and it'd be really nice to have like-minded people in my life. I think it's very important. So I am available through that email account.
Well, I believe you're going to be not only helping people, I believe you're going to be doing speaking engagements. So I think others are going to be contacting you saying, hey, would you come and speak? Because your story is amazing.
Can I add something real quick?
Please.
I just wanted to add, and it's for everyone that's viewing at this time, that it's really important that when we are going through negative experiences or have pain in our heart, that there's someone in our life that we can turn to. And I believe this with every ounce of my being. If my pastor, Robert, right here, had not listened to God back at when I was at Kaiser with a suicide attempt, that the odds are extremely high that I wouldn't be alive today. And the reason I bring that up is a lot of times we take what we've gone through, and I use the term silent no more, but we take it into silence. We don't talk to people. A lot of that's shame-based. But if you're out there, please reach out to someone, and may God be with you through that.
Well, thank you, Raelene. We appreciate your time. Thank you for telling your story. We hope that this resonates with someone and can help someone. And we just encourage you. We encourage you this day that there is hope. So thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, remember to subscribe, rate, and review us on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us in our mission to engage in deep conversations that impact mindsets and create a practice of introspection. Do you have an idea or a topic for a show? Message us at php@saclife.tv. Remember, your voice matters, and together we have the power to influence positive change in our world.